All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Just an update on whether or not he's going to play in the preseason, and it does not seem like he's going to play in the preseason, according to Robert Saleh. I think I do have a quote from Saleh on that. I thought I did, but I do not. But yeah, he's unlikely to play in the preseason. But yeah, Robert Saleh confirmed Rodgers' status on Tuesday, and yeah, so he'll be sitting out the entire preseason. Now, I don't have a problem with it. I said, maybe if he plays just a drive, in the dress rehearsal, I think that's enough. Just so he gets some game action, before the season starts. But I mean, I get it. Rodgers is 40 years old, coming off of a major injury. I can't really, make an argument like, oh no, he has to play. I get it. So there's really going to be no. Now there might be pushback from some other people. Other people might feel differently and say, no, he should play, because you want to get on the same page with your receivers. And people will point to, look at the arguments that him and Garrett Wilson are getting into. They've had, I think, a couple now, and I know I brought it up in the production meeting because I did talk about it yesterday, that he's getting frustrated in practice, and like I said, people will say, well, if you didn't go on your trip, you could have used that time to get on the same page. Now, that was brought up in the production meeting yesterday, and I said, listen, yesterday was July 30th. It's the season, their season starts, it's the first or second Monday of September. It is the second Monday of September, September 9th. Their season starts on September 9th, Monday night against the 49ers. It is, we're not even in August yet. We're about to be in August. There's plenty of time to iron things out. There's plenty of time. And when you got Aaron Rodgers, who, has been in the league for a long time, now I know he's got to get, this is a new team, and he really didn't get to do anything last year because he got hurt. They're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. And I expect them to do well if he's healthy. But I've said this, it's all going to come down to the offensive line. That's really what's going to make this season go, is the offensive line. Because if the offensive line is not good and is not protecting Rodgers, the season's not going to go anywhere. It's not. So that's really what it comes down to. It starts up front. So if they protect him and Rodgers is healthy, Rodgers feels good. You've seen him scrambling, running around, and throwing passes to Breece Hall on the sidelines even. Now, I know it's only practice, but he feels good. And listen, yeah, he's 40 years old, but just because you're 40 years old, that does not mean that you just lose everything at 40. It's just everybody sees 40 like, oh, yep, this is where players retire. Because that's usually what happens for some players. But just because Aaron Rodgers is 40, that doesn't mean he just lost everything. But if you point to the injury, yeah, I mean that's a tough injury to come back from, especially with you being 40. So, look, I'm just hoping he has a good year. I don't want to see him go out like he did last year. I saw again he's hoping to play 2 more great years. And with the team that he has around him, he has an opportunity to go out there and have a very good year. But he could also go out there and have a year similar to what he had his last year in Green Bay, where he threw double-digit interceptions. Didn't have a game where he threw for over 300 yards, which was very surprising. Both things were very surprising because you just wouldn't expect that. But that happened. And now you miss pretty much all of last year. And now you're coming back and you're 40 years old. So, yeah, the odds are stacked against him. The odds are stacked against him. But I'm willing to, like I've said this whole offseason, to take that risk and say, you know what? He's going to go out there and play well. And the Jets are going to have a good year. And if not, they brought this up recently on ESPN, but yeah, Dan Orlovsky said, depending on what happens this year, I believe it was Dan Orlovsky, he said this could go down as, I think he said, he definitely said one of, but if not the worst trade in NFL history. Now, it's very strong, but it will go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history if, the Jets end up, not doing well and Rodgers gets hurt again or just they underperform. Because the Jets went out and said, you know what, we're going to try to get him, bring him in, and hope that he brings us to the promised land. And so far that has not been the case. Now, I still don't think the Jets will get to the Super Bowl. But I at least expect this team to have a good regular season and make the playoffs. Because there's just too much talent on this team. But things get in the way. Injuries, coaching. Because, not a lot of people think Robert Saleh is a good coach. And, this could be it for him. Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator. Many people have strong opinions on him. And then, of course, many people have strong opinions on Rodgers. And, he's coming off of a significant injury. So, now Rodgers is going to the Hall of Fame. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer no matter what happens with the Jets. I mean, he's always going to be known as a Green Bay Packer at the end of the day. But, this is, your last chance to kind of add something to your legacy. How you want to be remembered. When he first came to the Jets, when he first got traded, he was saying all the right things, talking about the Lombardi Trophy being lonely, and Jet fans were, falling in love with him, with everything he was saying. He was saying all the right things, but then it just ended up, in disaster last year when he gets hurt. And now, Jet fans have just had enough of him, some of them at least, with the antics, with maybe him going on a campaign trail. The trip now to Egypt, it's just a bunch of different things. But, yeah, at the end of the day, let's just see how this season goes. And then we could truly evaluate how we look at this trade that the Jets made with the Packers to get Rodgers. But again, you had Aaron Rodgers available. And he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You take that risk. Like, I understand there were other options. You had Derek Carr out there. Now, if they had a chance to get Lamar Jackson, I would have said, you know what? Go after Lamar Jackson. Try to get him instead of Aaron Rodgers. But that ended up not happening. And they ended up going after Rodgers. Yeah, I would have taken Aaron Rodgers over Derek Carr. I mean, yeah, Derek Carr, played last year, and maybe, if he was the Jets quarterback, they probably make the playoffs. But yeah, I still would go after Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, it's just now it's different. Now you look back, you're like, oh, they should have went after Derek Carr. They should have went in a different direction. But you know what? How are we supposed to know that he was going to tear his Achilles? How are we supposed to know? I know people say, well, Rodgers, gets hurt a lot. What? The last few years, he really didn't get hurt. He played. The last significant injury he had, where he missed a lot of time, was the collarbone. In 2017. 2018, he pretty much played in every game. No, he did play in every game. 2019, played every game. 2020, played in every game. 2021, played in every game. Played in every game. Not last year. 2 years ago, played in every game. Now, not to say that he didn't have injuries that he was dealing with. Like, 2018, he got hurt against the Bears, and we thought he was going to be out for the year. But, he comes back in, he pulls off that miraculous comeback. but he played every game. 2 years ago, yeah, he got hurt his thumb. And people point to that as why he had a down year on his throwing hand. So there's just, I don't agree with that he's always hurt. But look at the injuries that he gets. I mean, 2 major injuries that he's had before the Achilles, the collarbone. 2013 had a collarbone injury. He was able to come back. And I actually saw a TikTok of, that game against the Bears, the final week of the regular season when Randall Cobb caught that game-winning touchdown. I remember watching that live. That was unbelievable, that game. But, it's I get it. Rodgers does get hurt, but let's not say he gets hurt all the time because there have been stretches where he doesn't get hurt. Last year, that was bad. But, I kind of blame that on the offensive line, too. I mean, the Bills just were running free. And you got to hope that doesn't happen this year. You got to hope that this offensive line holds up. But that is what's going to dictate what kind of season the Jets are going to have, is the offensive line. So, we'll see what happens, but Rodgers is not going to play in the preseason, which, again, I'm okay with. I said maybe have him play a series, but that's not the case. They want, rest him up. And, his first game action will be against the 49ers. Which, again, I don't love that to start the year, but that's what it is. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about Aaron Rodgers being held out of the preseason. Would you have liked to have seen him play in the preseason? Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. So we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we will end off the show by ranking the running backs in the AFC East. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.